based today in JS Bank. Also in JS Global, we have a long history of innovation. We were in fact the first brokerage house ever to be corporatized in the country. We were then the first to launch the book building process in Pakistan in 2008, first to launch margin finance in 2013, and then finally the RDA scheme that was linked to the stock exchange account. So we were the first to launch that also. So this comes in that tradition. I've seen those regulations, the sandbox regulations. I think they're a step in the right direction to bring innovation and then learn. And then of course, we can fail fast also, but we have to at least try. So thank you so much for those regulations and also all the encouragement PSX and SECP has given JS Global to launch the product. Of course, I'm not very happy with Imtiaz because he tells me this is for the JS Bank is not part of this, the 7 banks, but I understand why. We are looking at the biggest banks. And all I want to say is, and of course, my opinion would be biased, but the banking sector, as you know, even in these difficult economic times and the fast change in volatility in interest rates have been very resilient in terms of profitability. So I think on a downside also, banks provide a good hedge or at least a dividend hedge to the market. So from that perspective, and of course we all know ETFs, eventually, it takes maybe a bit longer, but eventually Pakistan catches up to the rest of the world, and ETFs also will catch up to the rest of the world. So thank you for that. And you also run ETF at JS Investments, and all the other AMCs that have taken a first step in ETFs. I encourage them to stay with the plan. And like you said, it's in the best interest of the market. So thank you so much.
Farooq Khan, MD, Pakistan Stock Exchange, the board members, Fasir Shamsi, CEO, JS Bank, Imtiaz, CEO, JS Investment. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Raja said, I think the vision for the capital market, I'll only limit myself to 2 areas. One, which has been repeatedly touched on, the birthplace of the ETF, that regulatory sandbox. I'll talk about it. And the second is the listing, which goes, or the capital formation. The reason for existence of exchange, in my view, is the capital formation. So I'll talk about listing and the IPOs and the products which should be there or which we are working on. Regulatory sandbox, it's been 4 years. We have annual cohorts. I think out of those, number of new areas have been identified. We have ventured into frameworks which were not existent through the regulatory sandbox itself. Now we have digital brokerage house. So there are applications, there are interests, people want to. I see a lot of youngsters sitting here who have been in the capital market, who understands that's their opportunity to move from being an employee to be the employer or entrepreneur as such. Then we have a digital insurance framework in place. So, and we already have a digital insurance license. Now we have a digital AMC license also. We have a digital distributor, but Akbar is sitting here from CDC. They have IMLAC. And I think this is an area which they need to create more awareness, something I've been repeatedly saying. So the digital way forward in terms of cost cutting and outreach, the 2 areas which with the shrinking market, we have to cut the cost. At the same time, we have to increase the outreach. I think digital and the youth bulge and even though the account size may be small, but the sheer number actually should compensate for that. We completed the 4th cohort only day before, and yesterday letters have been issued to the successful participants. Few interesting things will be in the market soon, in the news actually. We have issued, accepted the application for asset fractionalization, including real estate and gold. We have gone into AI-based advisory when it comes to AMCs, and few others in terms of insurance and even the normal lending aspect. So We have also changed, which I think this is the first time we are making it public, is from an annual, now it's an open regulatory sandbox. So going forward, anybody has any idea, they can come to us, discuss it. You don't have to wait for the annual opening and closing. So no more cohorts annual. It's a 24/7 shop in terms of the ideas, and we want to facilitate the startups and the youth. So that's the regulatory sandbox. Now from an annual event, it is something which is available throughout. So anybody has any idea when it comes to capital market, insurance, we are willing to look at it and then take it forward from there. ETFs, yes, they've been tested they were given this opportunity. The framework will be formalized, has been formalized. So now other brokerage houses needs to look at it and see the opportunity. And I think this is where the market will, as Farooq mentioned, the more the merrier, but at the same time, it will create awareness in the market and attract investors. Coming to the second is the capital market, but more so in terms of the listing. That's very much a focus area. As I said earlier, capital market without capital formation is not a market. But when it comes to the secondary market itself, a market without a liquidity is not a market. So these are the two areas which is a focus area for us, liquidity and the capital formation. When it comes to listing, we have discussed with PSX. I think in November, we would be holding the IPO summit. Idea is to bring the potential companies and have them look at the capital market and the process itself, answer any questions, and bring the recently listed companies also across the table. So if they have any questions to the people who are recently listed versus the company who have the potential to list, let them speak each other, they can speak the same language, and that will help them to understand. Then I think we have an opportunity I need to highlight here is the present finance minister. Her deep passion for the capital market is already evident, sort of meetings he has held with SECP, with State Bank, and a number of market participants. She wants the capital market to grow, and the GOP's dependence on the banking sector, but solely on the banking sector has to be. So the focus would be on the GOP debt, how could it be auctioned at the exchange and then later on traded at the exchange also. I think that's an opportunity for PSX. And at the same time, when it comes to the equity IPOs, she has given us the task. We have set with PSX. Initially, I'm using the word initially, but even though the committee came up with a pretty longish timelines, so I'm putting onus on Shahid and AKD, even Imtiaz and Suhail, the more active consultants. Once to me, the second point is the book building. Historically, last 10, 12 years, we have seen book building. I think the balance between the sponsors, which is quite understandable, they want to have a maximum return on the assets they have or the business they have set up, but at the same time, what they leave behind for the investors. That's a choice of the sponsors, but I think this is where the consultants have to play a role so that the market remains active in the recently listed IPO. Because for me, IPO is the most potent product which an exchange has to market itself and to bring in the new investors. And of course, next comes the ETFs or the products. It could be in form of REITs, it could be in form of asset fractionalization or ETF itself. So I think these are the two areas we are working on. And next week, we are a joint effort of led by CDC and supported by PSX and NCCPL also. We are launching a centralized gateway portal. The idea is one should be able to open an account in insurance sector if you want to have a relationship with an insurance company, with a mutual fund or a brokerage house within 5 minutes. So online you should be able to. That's, I think we have planned for next Thursday. So in my view, a listing where there's no public participation is not a listing per se. So there are sectors we have made certain policies recommendation to the ministry, FM, and we will follow it up with, which of course I can't disclose at this point in time. We are hoping that if those go through, a lot more activity should take place at the exchange.
In fact, fills me up with a lot of pride when I see the number of investment market luminaries that have turned up today to support us and give the vote of confidence to what is a landmark event in the history of JS Global at this auspicious event of the launch of the JS Global Banking Sector ETF. So really would like to thank every one of you from the bottom of my heart. It really means a lot that you've all turned out for this vote of support for us on what is really a big achievement for us to be the first brokerage house that has launched a ETF in the Pakistan market. Me and my team are also very proud that we add to an illustrious and decorated history of the JS Group and JS Global of leading the innovation in the financial sector and coming up with its one-of-a-kind ETF. But even before I go into the characteristics of the ETF, I think it is imperative that I do thank the SECP, not just for coming up with this concept of the sandbox regulatory regime, but the way practically your team has executed it. So I really wanted to thank you. Anyone we've reached out in the SECP for help, guidance on this matter, the kind of support we've received for that. So it's really heartening to see that it was not just a concept that was envisaged, there is practical support that has followed. And I'll echo the same sentiments for Ruksa for PSX as well. As you rightly pointed out, it has been a cross-functional exercise, and someone whose experience is firsthand, I can really tell you, whether it's your compliance team, whether it's your product development team, whether it's your marketing team, anyone we've reached out to, it's been an amazing experience how supportive they have been. And I think it would not be complete if I don't thank CDC, Badi Saab and NCCPL Lukman Saab for the way they always continue to play a role in the innovation. But one stakeholder that I would really like to thank today is the AMCs. I think it is really because of you that we are able to even think about this project, because you have really done the hard work in terms of paving the landscape for creating the ecosystem that can allow a player like JS Global to come in and dabble in the ETF and to join ranks with you and support with you and try to grow this industry, which has immense potential. As Farooq Saab pointed out, Akif Saab pointed out, it has got immense potential. And also to the group, Pasir Saab, Asad, the whole JS family, the way they support us to do these innovative steps. As you rightly pointed out, there will be successes, there will be misses, but it's really the support of the management that really stands out behind this. Just shedding a bit of light on the ETF, as we were mentioning, it's one of a kind, the first sector-specific ETF in the PSX. So what JS Global went with was the banking sector. We borrowed the wisdom from the PSX. So what we did was, in terms of selecting the constituents, we picked the constituents that are already part of the BKTI index that was there. But what we've done is we've made an equal weighted index. So when we were doing the brainstorming, we thought most of the sectors here, or most of the indices, are based on the free float market cap or those criteria. So we thought, let's do something slightly different, and we've gone for an equal weighted index of those 8 constituents. So we will continue to change the constituents as BKTI changes the constituents, but we'll keep them in equal weight on every rebalancing date. And it is going to be a total return index. So when we look at the different sectors, this has been one sector, the banking space, which has really stood the macro pressures. It has proven to perform well despite all the headwinds that have come in. So we thought this makes for a compelling investment story, a convenient way for investors to just come in and invest into a basket of 8 banks at one click. And the big thing being with ETFs that you do it on a NAV on a real-time basis. So the NAV is being calculated at a real-time basis at any point in time. For 85% of the day, the market maker will be available to ensure that there is liquidity in the ETF. So there's a lot of ease of entry and exit for investors who want to take a blanket exposure within the banking sector. So we feel that when you look at the banking sector, you look at this ETF, I think the blended multiple of this is less than 2 times in terms of PE. On a price to book, I think the blended PE is 0.5. And the best thing about banks in Pakistan is this basket also offers a dividend yield of 15%. So we are very excited about the proposition that this offers. We are excited about ETF and the possibilities that come with it. And we look forward to the continued support like you have shown me today. Again, as I said, I'll repeat this, I'm highly indebted to everyone in the fraternity that's turned out today to support us, and we hope and pray that the support continues. Thank you so much.